I'm probably going to offend somebody, but here it comes, right? Um, Idols, icons, and artifacts. What do we do with the stuff? Because if you're coming here or if you've been to our house, you're like, there isn't any religious stuff here. And why isn't there any religious stuff here? And so today we're going to go through this as to what does the Bible tell us to have? And then what latitude do we have? And then what's the stuff that we actually need to get rid of? And this is difficult because of this commandment. You shall not make for yourself an idol or any likeness of what is in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. So today, this is so hard to do because of these. What I'm doing right now is making an image. This is being broadcast on the internet. This will be preserved, turned into a sermon, right? Broadcast. It is, in our day and age, you would have to go Quaker or Amish to not have images. Images are everywhere. You can't have a website without an image. You can't, because you have to submit to the authorities or whatever to show your website. So our old website's icon, when it was called The Word in the Way, was a scroll of scripture. It was like an old parchment-looking scroll that was just scripture, and that was our logo. Here we've adopted the tree of life, and one could even argue that we shouldn't be doing that. Okay, so it's a difficult line to draw. It's difficult to do. So here's the bad. We're going to go from good to bad to good and back and forth. So I made a short video recently that said just because something is old doesn't make it true. It's called the appeal to age logical fallacy. It works both ways, right? Sometimes there was a generation that said don't trust anybody over 30. Then they turned 30. Okay. But they didn't like to trust the older generation. And that's common. That's common to want to break from the traditions of the people that came before you. And it's also common to be biased for and against stuff because it's newness or because of its oldness. But the problem with Israel is that the vast majority of Israel's history is bad, not even close to good. So this picture here is a coin that has the Ivri text of Hebrew on it. That's what those words are. And it's got two ankhs, and it's got, which are crosses, and it's got the image of like the phoenix rising from the thing. This is bad. This is really bad because it shows that whenever this was coined, this was a coin that's been unearthed in ancient Judea, that Israel was blending and mixing to the point that it was on their money. And that's bad. When they were good, they only had words on their money and nothing else. So they didn't have images of people, they didn't have images of things or whatever. And it's pretty, this is just bad. So if you were to go and find this coin, and next to it was a scroll of a book of Isaiah that's different than our book of Isaiah, you would go, I'm probably not going to believe that book of Isaiah because it would be dated and associated with this time frame. It's about 300 BC, where this is clearly when Israel is being bad. And reason I put it up on here was just to show you that, but also to show you the Ankh is on there. That's bad. That's the Ankh of Egypt. That is a sign of a false god. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. The Ankh is here and here. Okay. Yeah, you can just barely see it. crevices, your hips of the waist. Yeah. And this is obvious. This is meant to, it's meant to show their religion was totally mixed up at this point, because it's got an idol of some kind of winged creature and the Ankh and the ancient Ivri script. This one's up here because I use Microsoft PowerPoint has an image service that I could put up royalty-free images. So if I either take the picture of myself or I get it from there, because I don't want to break anybody's intellectual content, and I also don't want, I do want to push this stuff out there. So there are better examples of this on the internet, but I don't own the picture, so I can't really put it up right now. So this is bad, and this is when they were mixing, and it's kind of representative of Christianity today, because Christianity mixed, and we're going to get into that. But the commandment is not like, it's not telling us that we can't have images of anything. And that's where I was for a while. That's where a lot of people who come to this war is, I threw it all out and we had nothing. But that's not what the commandment is saying, because when they built the temple and the tabernacle, they decorated it with pomegranates, images of pomegranates, images of angelic beings, images of other things. So we have to look at the commandment and go, okay, what is Yahweh trying to convey to us? You don't have images for the purpose of worship. So it says, you shall make on its hem pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet material all around on its hem, and bells of gold between them all around, a golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate all around at the hem of the robe. This is talking about the garment that the high priest would wear, was decorated with images of fruit. So that means you can have images of fruit. It means you can have decorations. It's not a prohibition on that. Just the same as the commandment not to murder is put into a lot of Bibles wrong. It says you shall not kill. Well, that's an impossibility, because right after they did that, what did they do? Went and killed all the people inside of Canaan, right? So the commandment is not thou shalt not kill, it's thou shalt not commit murder. And so you have to put things into context and say, wait a minute, Israel and the Torah provides for the manslayer, right, to be chased down and have executed, provides for executing people, provides for war. So it's not thou shalt not kill, it's thou shalt not murder. And the same with the commandment for making images. It's about not making images for the purpose of worship and turning them into idols. Another thing that when they excavate stuff around Israel, the way that they're finding out that Israel was good when they were good is pretty unique. And I don't know if that was here or somewhere else, but I did want to mention it while it comes to mind, is because they unearthed a wealthy person's house who's a Levite. And this person could have any manner of dishes, any manner of pottery, anything, has a very nice house, wealthy person, and they have stone pottery, which is the cheapest low class stuff that you could possibly have. Why? Why would they have stone plates instead of clay or whatever other material? Because of the commandment, where if the unclean animal comes in touch with a jar, you have to throw the jar away. But an unclean animal could come in touch with a stone and you only have to wash it. So the way they're finding that Israel's good is through when there's evidence of them following the Torah. And there's not a lot of good. Okay. Most of the time they pull stuff out of the ground and they were mixing. And there's pagan temples, there's pagan stuff all over the place. And so we have to sift through that pagan stuff. And today I'm going to show images that should not exist in a religious context. And this is a problem because evil came into the world, we have to learn it to not do it. And that's Satan's trick, because once you start talking about something and you get it out there in the open, and people go, oh, no, we could do it anyway, right? Our decoration here in the hall. In this hall, we don't have anything because we share this with another group. And so we just this up here, but our downstairs, if you come here, we toil over what we're going to put on the walls. Okay. For those of you who come in recent months or even in a year, you don't realize it. But when we put up any image or any decoration, it usually goes through the group text or a group email. Is everybody okay with this? Is this okay? And so you go downstairs to our hall and we have Yod He Vav He on the wall, which Tiffany picked out. And I didn't realize it was that big. Really cool, right? That thing on the back. We have the 10 Commandments on the wall, and we have a tree of life on the wall. We have some prayers on the wall. We have some Psalms on the wall. And then we have some fake foliage because it was pretty dank down there. Yeah. Yes. And we do have a menorah as well. And I have one at home. And that's another one where I think I was going to get into that later, but life goes on. Should we have articles that look like stuff from the tabernacle, from the temple service? Probably not. But our menorahs are not olive oil menorahs, right? And I personally believe that the actual menorah looked more like a tree than the bullwinkle thing that we see. Okay, the moose horns. I think it had depth to it. It says that the cups were like tulip petals. It uses a lot of wood when it describes it, a lot of tree, a lot of like almond blossoms. It uses a lot of that imagery. So I actually think the real menorah looked like that. I used to have a Hanukkah with the 9-candle one, and I don't believe in that anymore. I don't believe that that's a thing, so I don't have one, but you could. You have latitude. And we do have the 7-candle menorah that you saw me here. And we have the shofar, but the shofar is a decoration, but it's also a tool. So some kind of rambling here. Now, what we had in this hall during Sukkot also toiled over, okay? Because when we invite all the brethren here, we are inviting scrutiny from people who study the Bible like we do, which are people who are really knowledgeable about the Bible and really particular about how we worship. And one gentleman had a problem with us having fake vines and fake flowers in the building and stuff like that. He only wanted natural. I'm not seeing it, but it's a respectable opinion, right? But in the back and forth with him, I'm like, can we have a picture of a flower? Yes, but you can't have a fake flower. I'm like, I'm not seeing it, bro. But in our field, in our realm, we have to be as accommodating as possible. So what did we have in here during Sukkot? We had the tribe banners. Now the tribe banners have to have images on them and words on them. And so that means we do have to have some kind of images, but those are like the standards that they were supposed to carry up. I'm still a little freaked out about the taxidermied wolf head. Okay. All right. That was kind of weird because I was like holding it in my hand when I realized that it used to be an actual wolf. Okay. Okay. But it's cool. But, we can wear furs. So I don't know. But that's worth the tribe of, who's the wolf? Naphtali? Which tribe is symbolized by the wolf? Well, somebody had
I think it
Benjamin.
was Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin. Yeah. So somebody made whoever made the Benjamin banner. We didn't make these banners. Somebody at a different Sukkot site spent a lot of money making these beautiful, intricate banners they got to be 4 feet tall, 4.5 feet tall. Like only I could pull it out of the box of Corky, right? So they're really tall. They're big. I think they're made out of maybe cashmere or some very fine linen, and they have lots of intricate details on it. And we had them on stands that Corky built all around, which was cool. And then we had the sukkah, which is the most authentic sukkah I have ever seen. So somebody came up and had a problem with that. Out. Okay. All right. Because sometimes people just want to have a problem. Okay. Seriously. I mean, it was actually made out of, they didn't like the decorations, the fake decorations we put on it, the lights or whatever. And I'm like, I've never seen one that didn't have that on it. Most of them are made out of plywood or pallets, and they're screwed together. This one was not. This one was as authentically put together as you could possibly imagine. And then we draped it with some fake foliage because we're indoors. Now, if we were outdoors, game on. It would have all been foliage and whatever, but we didn't want to have to clean the hall up every day. And we weren't worshiping it wasn't a tool of worship, it was a decoration. So it's just a decoration. And so now we have, that's pretty much the point today, is that we don't have images for worship, and we're going to get into a little bit of details. What is commanded? What are we supposed to have for images and for worship things? This is a mezuzah, and the mezuzah we just said the Shema. It says, you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. This is a way of doing that. Okay. And I just bought a 3-pack of these online, and it was $15. They're designed to go outside. They're made out of brass or copper or some other type of metal. And they have the Shema in Hebrew and in English on mine. And a lot of them come with a little scroll that you would put behind it of words that would go in. I didn't do that on mine. Now, we have latitude. If that's how I chose to put them on the doorpost of my house, that's my front door right there. But you don't have to do it that way, right? If you want to write it out, if you want to put the Shema or the 10 Commandments on a plaque and bolt it to your house, if I had a friend who made the 10 Commandments out of steel with like a water jet cutter, and they were pretty big. And then he put it in front of his house, and then he had to chain it to something because somebody was going to steal the 10 Commandments. Like, are you reading it while you walk? Right? Right? Thou shalt not steal. Right? So you have latitude on all this stuff. But for me, this just seems like a natural thing to do. You could pick these up off of Amazon, and they have it, and you could put it on the doorpost of your house. And why not? Yeah, don't lose the screws, says Terry. She said, don't lose the screws. Mezuzah, M-E-Z-U-Z-A, mezuzah. And so another caution on this is the anti-Semitism in our world these days. If you put this on your house, there are people who may want to do something to you. So you be cognizant of that too. You may want to do something else in order to not provoke. We live in the country, and go ahead and provoke. I'm not issuing any kind of comment, any kind of challenge or anything like that. But if somebody doesn't like the commandments on my doorpost, then we could have a discussion, right? But this is one thing that we're supposed to have. It is not a talisman. It is not protecting you from anything, and it is not meant for anything other than what? What do you think it's for? Thank you. To remind us to keep the commandments. When you leave your house, when you come in your house, it's a reminder. That's all it is. And so we should do it. We should have it. I will confess that I do not have these on every entrance and exit of my house. Probably will be fixing that nowadays, now that I've figured it out. But it says the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. Should probably do something like that. And it's to remind us to keep the commandments. That's it. And the next thing are tzitziyot, these blue tassels that you see us wearing here. They are this is the only thing a layperson is commanded to wear for religious sake or for anything like that. You do not have to have them showing. It says to put these on the corners of your garments. Most assume that that's something that's showing, but you could tuck this in. The Jews wear a thing called a talit katan, a small talit, which is like a t-shirt kind of thing that has them on it. And then we have a talit gadol, a big talit in there that we used to bless the kids with. That garment came later. That garment came with rabbinic Judaism after the fall of the Second Temple, and it is not a commandment. I had a tallit made because most of the tallits have on what's called the atara, which is, you would see it out as my collar if I wore it. It says in Hebrew to bless you, Yahweh, our Elohim, or Adonai Eloheinu, for commanding us to wear the tallit. The Bible does not command us to wear the tallit. It does not do that. So ours does not have that on there. Had to have it custom made to make sure that that wasn't part of it. But it is a tool for holding tzitzits, and it is very similar to what Yeshua wore when he was on the earth. So in Matthew 9:19 through 21, Yeshua got up and began to follow him, and so did his disciples, and a woman came who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak, for she was saying to herself, if I only touch his garment, I will get well. If you dig into this verse, the Greek word is the same word that's translated as the tassels. When they made the Greek translation of the Bible, she grabbed his tzitzits. He wore them. We call ourselves Christians. Not hard to follow the path I'm going there, right? And we should just do what he did. The Bible says men, right? Well, it says sons of Israel to wear them. It means children, okay? A lot of ladies, I've had ladies, hey, is it okay if I wear a tzitzit? Yes, for goodness sakes. It means children. It doesn't mean men only. That would be foolishness. Women have commandments to follow. They're not allowed to kill people either, right? Murder, right? Right? So it's for both sexes, and you can sew them on. Most of us get these loops and put them on our belt loop and just hang them off there. You could have carabiners. You could clip-ons. You have latitude. You could sew them in there. They do not have to be white. Mine are black and blue. They don't have to be white and blue. They have to have a blue thread on them. I have some on my backpack that are brown and blue. I wore some that look like the mezuzot colors with the blue thing for the longest time. You have latitude. Some like to wear red, white, and blue, right? You kill two birds with one stone. It's like 4th of July set of tzitzits, right? And you can have, you have latitude. We don't have to follow the rabbinic traditions. But there are people who believe like us who sell these things online, through Etsy, through eBay, through Amazon. So if you buy these, you're supporting people like us. The knots mean something. The way they're knotted in the rabbinic way, it has something to do with the name. It has something to do with the commandments, the 7 knots or 5 knots or something like that. But they're handy. They don't have to show, and I don't like them to be terribly long myself. If I get a set that's long, snip. So most people wear 4 because it says you're supposed to wear them on the corners. I only wear 2 because I'm round, and and I don't have corners. So if I get a set of 4, that means I have 2 sets of 2, and I only wear 2. I'm in the minority. Most people will put all 4 on them, but I thought that's overkill. And I buckle myself into my car often because they land right there by the couple click, right? And these are, we have them downstairs. If you want some today, just take some, right? That's why they're here. They're not charged or anything like that. The guy who came last week, I gave them to him, and he did trim them because they were really long, right? The ones we have are a little on the long side. But this is it as far as what we're supposed to wear. End of sermon. Not really, but these are the only 2 things in the Bible that I know of that we as believers are supposed to wear or do or anything like that. I know the Jewish people like to wear the kippah, and the Catholics wear the kippah, but the rationale for that is because the high priest wore it. So we're wearing, I don't get it. The only person who's supposed to wear headgear in the Bible that I know of, everybody, I'm free to be corrected, is the high priest. The high priest and he had 2 things on to protect it and whatever. Paul says for men to not cover our heads when we're praying. So I would tend to go with the apostle, and do that. But there's nothing else that we're supposed to wear or we're supposed to adorn, other than these 2 things. And what's crazy is that these are the only 2 things that mainstream Christianity won't do. They will do anything other than this. They will put up crosses, they will put up trees, they will put up empty tombs, they will make up stuff, right? And for me, in my house, like the Joshua Aaron song we just saw, let's just keep it simple, right? The KISS method. That's what it says to do. If you're wearing blue ones, if you see somebody wearing blue ones, they're probably us. They're probably believers in Yeshua, because the rabbinic Judaism, they can't agree on what color blue it's supposed to be, so they wear white ones. They made that up, but we wear blue ones. And I've met some Jews before who are like, why are you wearing that? I'm like, is it not written? Right? Right? Is it not written? And then I've been hugged, frisked to see if I'm wearing the talit katan, right? They do that, right? To see if you're a believer, right? If you're like them, if you believe in their stuff, and I'm not, and so it confuses some. But I also saw a guy about 6 months ago at the Home Depot in Liberty, and he was wearing them, and I'm like, yo, and we had a conversation, right? And you can meet people. It's a good talking point, but that's not its purpose. And Yeshua does command that we don't broaden our phylacteries, that we don't do this to show off. It is a thing to remind you to keep the commandments. That's what the commandment says. And and they wear out, which is kind of like every year we keep the holy days to renew our faith, and we renew. So the fact that they're made out of cloth and they wear out is kind of good. Now we're going to go pick on false images. This is why you don't see any crosses in our building. Okay. So we don't have crosses. We don't do crosses. And when I learned this one, I like, these things are everywhere, right? They're on your Bible. You buy a Bible, it has a cross on it, right? And so the cross was an image in religion before Yeshua. It's from false religions. That's why we show the ankh on the coin. And all of these are just variations of the cross, because the reason, one is Christopher's thinking here. When they put Yeshua to death on the cross, they worshiped sun god. The cross is the symbol of a sun god. It's saying the sun god has power over the son of God. So when he died, what happened? The sun went dark to show that he has the power over the sun, not the other way around. The Romans crucified thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. A lot of times Christian ministers will talk about the crucifixion, even the Passion of the Christ that Mel Gibson made, and how his agonizing death was worse than anybody else's death. A, no, and B, it doesn't have to. There's nothing that says that he has to have the worst death ever. He died innocently. He had a horrible death. Nobody wants to die like that. But Rome crucified a lot of people, and the Muslims still do. And crucifixion is not unique to the Messiah. You can read the account and see there were two people next to him. Now, he was hammered to it, and they were tied to it. So he had it bad, and he had it awful, and nobody wants to die like that. But he died rejected by his people, rejected, betrayed, all of that stuff still there. But the cross is an implementation of execution of an ancient pagan religion. And so putting him on that was Satan actually like sticking a finger in his eye. Okay. So it's kind of bad. And this one is when this was yeah, that's right. When they crucified him, they put above his head Melech Yehudim, Rex Judea, King of the Jews, right? Rex Judea was Latin, Melech Yehudim is Hebrew. I don't know how to say it in Greek, right? But they put it in the three languages. Why? Because that's what Rome did. When they took over a region, an area, or a city, they got the highest level people and they crucified them in public to say, if you try to do anything to establish your old government or go against us, this is what's happening to you. And they would crucify kings and princes and mayors and put them at the entrance of the city and leave them there to just die horrible as a message to anybody coming and going as to what you can expect if you defy them. what are we supposed to do coming and going? The Shema, right? Right? Shema is good. Crucifixion's bad. So crosses are not good. And the last thing, why would you ever commemorate somebody's death through the implement that killed them? Okay, that's what came to me when this 25 years ago, when this information was put to me. It wasn't through this book. The book I'm showing is called Too Long in the Sun. Those are Diana's thumbs there. And 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 it was through the Two Babylons, which is a harder to read older version of this from the end of the 1800s. And but when Europe, when the Reformation happened, the original Protestants took all this stuff down. They took all the idols down, all the statues down, all the crosses down, and replaced it with the Ten Commandments. So I'm telling you something today that sounds absolutely bizarro, but it is Christian history to have gotten rid of this stuff. So if you want to know the details, this is the book, and you can get it at our website because it's not in print anymore. So if you go to our website, it's there in PDF, firstcenturychristianity.net/too long in the sun. I actually did know the author a little bit. I did write for one of his sites at one point. His name's Richard Rives, but pronounced Reeves. And the book's not in print anymore. So I put it up on the website so that people can have it. And you go download it, you save a copy, and there's a warning in the front of this book that I'm going to issue to you. Your will be broken if you read this book. When you realize the depth of paganism in mainstream Christianity, you will not be happy. Okay? Okay. You will be upset because the pastors, the preachers, the ministers, the PhDs, they know a lot of this stuff and they never tell their people. They never do. And now it's starting to come out. And so this book is referenced and even cross-references Encyclopedia Britannica. He shows how easy it is to find this information out. And he covers all the bases in this one. And it's a good book, but buyer beware. Or it's free, actually. Because after I read that, I was just right? I was like, no way, this can't be true. I had to stop studying at one point because I was having to throw so much stuff out of the house. And I'm like, I don't want to know anymore, right? It's enough. Like, what's next? Got to get rid of my silverware. I'm like, what could possibly be next? And I'm making fun, but being on the other side of it, it is a good place to be. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you this stuff right up here. And so that's that. Next, the statue of Mary. No, just no. Okay. Okay. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing that is in Christianity, is the worship of the exact goddess in the exact way that Paul went to Ephesus to get rid of. Okay, that's what he was doing there. And Paul went to Ephesus to preach against Artemis of the Ephesians, Diana of the Ephesians, who was the fertility goddess. But what happened over time is that as Rome's going around and Christianity's growing, they realized that the people are not going to give this up. This veneration of this female goddess form, so they married it. Mary-ed. They called it Mary. And said, okay, you bring it in, right? And they did this with all sorts of stuff, which is why we're in the predicament we're in today. It's everywhere, and it's permeated the entire faith. And for those of us who see it and get rid of it, we look like lepers. We look like weirdos. And so Mary is not to be prayed to. There's nothing positive about this whatsoever. There's no way to read the Bible and conclude the believers are supposed to be worshiping Yeshua's mom at all. And they'll say, well, we're not worshiping her, we're venerating her. Oh no, I know how to pray the rosary. And they say 10 Hail Marys to 1 Our Father. 10 to 1. Okay. Okay. That's crazy. So we're not supposed to be doing anything like this. No statues, no nothing. When the conquistadores got to Spain, when the Spaniards got to South America, you know that they found them worshiping the mother and child and thought it was a divine appointment because the Spaniards were Catholic and they worshiped the mother and child statues and they had the mother and child. They didn't realize that that was probably from the Tower of Babylon when the people got scattered. They brought their pagan ways with them, right? Well, that's one explanation why it's everywhere. Another explanation is that the demons are seated it everywhere, right? Because Satan really doesn't. He wants to get a crack in your armor. He doesn't have to actually take you out, right? He just wants to get a crack in your armor. And so Rome did this with a lot of stuff. This is what they call the statue of Peter in St. Peter's Square in Vatican, the Basilica. It's Apollo. It's not Peter. It's actually a statue of Apollo. This is a copy of a bronze statue that was made in 300 BC that they made a copy of it in the hundreds. And they just called it Peter because the people weren't going to get rid of it. This is because Catholic means universal. And the Romans wanted to have one universal church for their empire. So they let everything, they were pretty fast and loose with it to let it all in. So that way you could, so that the people would believe it and they could have political stability through religion. And was that me? Oh, all right. That's cool. Because mine's here and I don't know over there. But that's where Rome just couldn't get enough of this stuff. So there's a lot of things that are in Christianity where the reformers did a lot of good, but they didn't give up Sunday. Okay? And they didn't give up the diet. They didn't change back to the normal diet. So they didn't do a lot of stuff. And they kept some stuff. And then you have different branches of Protestantism that are different varying degrees of Catholicism, where most would say that they're the daughters of Babylon, the whore of the beast or whatever. I don't like using all that strong language because that gets people to put up their dukes. You know what I mean? I just want to put out the facts here that this stuff is not, you're not going to see anything like this around here. You're not going to see any images of people or any type of veneration of people or anything like that. The Romans believed in that people could become gods. They believed all kinds of stuff. And so they were polytheistic and they had idols and they had everything and you could worship whatever. And largely Christianity did switch to a monotheistic religion, but you really didn't get there if you change all of the old statues into saints and say, oh, that's this one, that's this one. When I remember the last thing I studied before I had to give it up and say, this is true, and the way I taught was false, and it was, I believe it was St. Dionysius, and the fact that St. Dionysius and Our Lady of Fatima, both of those saints they trace back to other origins. And they don't really know why those people are venerated, but they were just passing out veneration, and people did it, and they just brought them in. And I'm like, maybe money, right? But maybe I did know a guy who had a family member who was a priest, who said one of the reasons they did it was because the Spaniards were killing anybody who didn't convert. So they just did so the priests were tired of the bloodshed. And they did all this stuff to blend it in to where the people would stop being, murdered, because they were just something that my daughters brought to me. Like, America always gets this bum rap about how we, treated Native Americans, which was bad. But go look what Spain did to South America. That was ridiculous, brutal genocide of the highest order. Right. And this is after who's the famous guy? Cortez meets with Montezuma and meets with them and says, hey, we're going to be pals. We're going to be trading partners. Came back with an army and killed them all. Right. and they didn't even flinch about it. So that's another reason why it's all in there. But that's it. Idols, icons, artifacts. possessions don't have any power.